This video is brought to you by the Kingston Bolt, the easy and effective way to back up all your iPhone photos and videos and free up storage on your iPhone. Check out the link in the video description to learn more. What is going on, guys? Alex here, and this is the iPhone 4S, which is a phone that I've done just a couple of videos on this channel. Today, we're not just doing the regular is it still worth it video, we're actually going to give this thing a new battery, so let's get straight into it. So guys, the iPhone 4S has been a very popular phone on this channel. If you managed to catch my last video on this phone, you actually saw that you could downgrade it to iOS 8.4.1. But if you didn't manage to catch that and you have a phone on iOS 9.3.5, unfortunately it has been patched, so you can no longer downgrade. So the only other way to speed up this phone will be to give it a new battery, which is what we're going to do today. So let's get straight into it. Replacing the battery is actually pretty damn easy. We start by removing these two screws at the bottom of the phone, then push up on the back glass panel and pull it away from the phone. Once that's done, we're going to remove these two screws here on this metal connector and pry up that connector using a plastic spudger tool. After that, we can remove the old battery, place in the new one, click in that little metal connector and do up those two screws, put the glass panel back on without breaking it, and reinstall the pentalobe screws along the bottom of the phone. So once we're done with that, we're actually then going to have a fully, hopefully working, if you didn't break anything, iPhone 4S with a brand new battery. Mine here is actually running iOS 8.1.3. I'm going to go ahead with the setup and then we will actually answer the question that you clicked this video for.
Many hours later.
Okay, so I've gone ahead with the setup and downloaded all of the apps that I would usually use on my daily driver, so let's get straight into the review. The iPhone 4S was released back in 2011, so using it daily in 2018 will not be the best experience you've ever had. Back in 2011, this was among one of the best phones you could buy. Its design was well ahead of its time and it offered first-of-a-kind Siri, which clearly hasn't been updated since. The 4S promised better performance to its predecessor, the 4, but 7 years later, should you buy one over a more modern-day flagship to save money? Well, honestly, the first and biggest issue for me with this phone is its size. Seriously, it is much smaller than it seems. During the setup of this phone, it really hit me how much bigger phones are these days. I personally use the Lumix 2 as my daily driver, so the 4S is basically half the size of that, so I couldn't and still can't get a good enough grip on the phone because of its size. For me, it is way too small to use daily. At just shy of a centimeter thick and weighing in at 140 grams, it is definitely heavier and thicker than I personally find comfortable using. So all in all, the design seriously isn't all that bad, considering you can pick up a 4S for under £50. Yes, it has its flaws, as does every phone, but for the price you can't really question it. The cameras on this phone are one of the most disappointing features. On the rear we have an 8 megapixel grain factory, on the front we have a VGA resolution grain factory. There's something about these cameras that really sets them apart from other cameras that we see these days, purely because they're so grainy, they lack detail, and in general they're just terrible. I honestly think attaching a good lens to a potato could produce better photos. Sure, at the time of release they were good, but we've come so far from then that going back to these cameras is really not a recommended choice. Performance on this phone is really not as good as a modern day flagship. Whilst it may be good for its price and for its size and age, it really doesn't live up to a modern day expectation. Under the hood we have the Apple A5 paired with 512 megabytes of RAM, so performance really isn't all that impressive. Even with my 4S running iOS 8.4.1 and a brand new battery put in it literally a week ago, the phone performs better than it has been in the past, but it is still nothing compared to what we can experience today. But you have to remember that this phone was made in the days when Snapchat was good and when Instagram showed your posts chronologically, so it seems unfair to try and compare this phone to a modern day flagship, but I will be honest, performance in comparison to a modern flagship is terrible. If you're looking to buy this phone, I have to recommend that you find one with iOS 8 or even lower than that installed, because this time last year I used it with iOS 9.3.5 and it was just so much slower, laggier, and just generally a terrible experience. If I hadn't already mentioned it, mine is running iOS 8.4.1. The performance is definitely a lot better than it was on iOS 9. If you do have one stuck on iOS 9.3.5, a new battery will definitely help you speed it up. And also, for those of you wondering, app compatibility on a lower iOS version should not be an issue, because when you go to download an app, it actually offers the last compatible version, so you can still run what you would on any other version of iOS. So to sum this video up, the iPhone 4S is decent enough if you need a backup phone or even just a business, burner, caller, whatever you want to call it phone. But if you've used any modern day flagship or even a phone from a couple of years ago, like in 2015 when we had the Nexus 6P, the Nexus 5X, all of those type of phones, it would really be hard to go back to this. For just slightly more money, there are so many better options like the iPhone 5 or even the 5S, and there's even some budget smartphones that you can get these days that will actually give you a much faster and better experience. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like to give it a big thumbs up, drop a comment down below for what old generation iPhone or any actually phone I should review next, and I will catch you guys in my next video. The Kingston Bolt finally brings on-the-go storage to iPhones, allowing up to 128GB of external storage for all of your photos and videos from your iPhone. With easy storage of files and transfers to and from the drive and the computer, the Bolt is the perfect solution for portable iPhone backups. Check out my full review in the top corner or the link in the video description to find out more.